All right, rise and
My
shine,
fault.
sleepyheads.
I'm
Time to
late
go.
this morning. I'm late
Yeah.
this morning.
Yeah,
I was out. I
that's
was
right.
out
We're looking at
partying at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill last night with with the coach. For the
Well,
media team.
that
Media
would be
members
fun.
invited out there last night. So
Well, that would
still
have
got
been a
my
fun
shirt
time.
on. My buddy
Yeah,
Martin.
you do.
Yeah.
I like it.
We
Spurrier.
haven't ordered
Hey,
our other ones, so
I would love to get a shirt that says Spurrier's Bar and Grill from Freddie Weeby helped make
That's
that
right.
thing.
Great job by Freddie Weeby and the gang last night.
It is. It's awesome. All right, we got Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi on. He is matrix, numbers, graphs, chart. We're going to get into a lot of college football with him. Wil Gunter over in Columbia, South Carolina, ESPN 107. Oh, it's 107.5, The Game. That's it. In Columbia, South Carolina, talking some Gamecocks and what's happening over there. Yancy Porter Rodney Orr Hotline.
The Game.
Rodney Orr.
The Game. Rodney Orr is the Game, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and he'll be the Tide 100 or Tide Insider TV, and that's his good book. It's a really good book, bigger than Bama. All right, smash subscribe button, bottom right hand corner. Allow notifications on Android and iPhone. Get pinned.
I'm getting caught up.
Handy. Yeah,
we're gonna get you all my chairs, Rob. I'm all over the place. It's been a crazy day. All right,
well,
you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready?
Here we come.
Let's go.
Whoa.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, good morning, Jake Wimberly down in Jackson. Here we are. I think we're now, 18 days away from the start of college football season. Do the math. That's, 432 hours away. Well, actually, a week earlier, we started in Dublin, Florida State and Georgia Tech. But in Mississippi, the Dogs, first-year coach, Jeff Levy, again, he didn't get a football lobotomy, just like when Brent Venables went to Oklahoma. He's a hell of a coach. What's he doing there with what he's got at Mississippi State, and who's going to be the starting QB and all that good stuff?
Morning, guys. Look, I think it's for sure Blake Shapen. I mean, you don't bring a guy in off the transfer portal and not, you're going to give him every chance they can to succeed. And that's not just Mississippi State. That's any of these teams. That's Cam Ward at Florida State. Cam Ward at Miami. That's Uiagalelei at Florida State. Any of these guys are going to, Will Rogers at Washington, they're all going to come into play. So I think it's Shapen. And I think for Mississippi State, it's just continue to try to have fun. Learn what Levy wants to do offensively, and we don't know. And my colleague, Matt Wyatt, made this comment on his show yesterday, who's the color analyst for Mississippi State, is, a lot of these practices are closed now, so we don't see a whole lot, which is kind of perplexing how the writers in the Associated Press poll can rank 25 teams when we haven't seen anything of the 25 teams. But that's another topic. But nonetheless, I think it's all about getting ready for that first game. And it's I hate to use the term brick by brick mentality, but that's what it is at Mississippi State.
Well, everybody now, the big shift is the wide receiver room, the running back room. Oh, running backs, they don't matter. Yeah, they do. Talk about that. And because if the offensive line is good, everything will work.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely put more of an emphasis on the wide receiver room. And again, I apologize, I didn't do any graphics today just because we're kind of past the graphics portion at this point. And
exactly.
just for future stuff to know, what I'll do once the season starts is every week I will do a college football playoff projector poll. That is my poll that comes out with a ton of different data saying, hey, here's where I think if the playoffs were today, obviously we don't have championships yet, this is what the playoff would look like. And we'll go all the way through even when they announce it. So updating quarterback rankings and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I shift at this point is once we get in season, then we'll do, real-time data as the season moves along. But back to your point, the wide receiver room is extremely important, so much that I've, again, quantified wide receivers in my metrics now, where I just call, impact ball catcher metric. But The running back still extremely important. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at Texas and Texas A&M. I'm sure you guys know they lost running backs the last week or two, starting running backs. So, the running back room for Mississippi State is going to be one that's going to be kind of by committee. I know that they like some of their guys. Again, if you can run it a little bit, then that just helps that passing game. And I think, Jeff Levy, it's definitely going to be more of a vertical attack with some run, option, plays from the quarterback and the running back position.
When we talk about wide receivers, and I thought about this when I was running last night, this is what I think about when it's hot. But you wonder, the guys that are playing wide receiver now, 10, 15 years ago, would a lot of those guys been the running backs on a team in the SEC?
Some of them. A lot of them were on basketball courts, right? I mean, honestly, if we're being honest, years ago, maybe running backs, but I think the game has changed so much. You needed a couple guys, especially get down to like the high school level and even some college, you needed a couple guys that could do a couple things. One, run fast down the field on a vertical route. Two, know how to run a post and run how to corner route, and then a button hook. And that's literally it. The route tree has evolved so much now over time, and even so much that we call it a route tree, but it's more of a combination of what do receivers do? Do they know how to just find grass? Can they read can a slot receiver read a linebacker or a corner or a safety that's maybe coming down on him? And can the quarterback see that as well? So it's a lot of pitch and catch, pre-snap read, that kind of stuff. So that position has changed so much. I think some of those guys would have been running backs years ago, but I think a lot of those guys are on the basketball court. And if football had not evolved to where it is today, where we're seeing, 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide, a lot of those guys would be out there today.
Yeah, and that was always the thing you would hear about. If a guy's 6'6", 250 in Kentucky, he's on a basketball court. In Alabama, he's an edge rusher. And it's a different world. All right, let's talk about in Mississippi State right now. 6 wins gets you a bowl game. We know that, but let's go back to the route tree. People, you hear that term used a lot. Put it in the vernacular so that Floyd R. Turbo American in Platte River, Nebraska can go, yeah, I get that. Because route tree can be construed in a lot of ways.
Sure, it can.
Well, I should not have asked about the route. He disappeared. Karnak the Magnificent, man.
Well, hey, Brendan doesn't need route tree. Look, they got Spurrier down there. They've been doing route trees before route trees were popular.
I was hanging out with Spurrier last night, okay? First of all, that's what the problem is. I was at the media event there, and, let's just say, I stayed out late. It's okay.
Yeah.
I am allowed to have a day, okay? Give me a break. Hey, I not to interrupt you, but I was trying to pull up something about injury bugs, through the fall season, and I did. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's
no. Let's do the route tree and then talk about because we got 2 5-star running backs in the SEC out. Yeah,
out. Yeah. Okay. So when you say route tree, what you mean basically is, what kind of routes are you running with your wide receivers? So when you say a tree, obviously, if you start at 0, which is the bottom, that's going to be basically a stop route or any kind of just, hey, you're going to take 1 step stop. That's typically called a 0. Then you get to, 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. It just works its way up all the way to 9 and then even a 10, some of that. And, a 1 may be just a quick 2-step post route. Now we're getting into, real football stuff here. A 3 may be just what we call a twist or a cut route to the sideline. A 4 may be more of a dig or an in route. And then as you go down the tree, you progress in yards. So those quarterbacks and receivers work together on, hey, they may call it, they say, let's just run a 6. Well, a 6 may be basically just, 10 yards down and just a quick, quick fade route or a quick cross, towards the hash mark. So, and every team does it a little differently, but it's important to understand the routes. And this goes back to even high school football, is because coaches, a lot of times, if you wonder how they'll run so quick and so fast, a coach may go 2-5-7. We're going to run 2-5-7. Well, that may be 3 receivers where the inside guy knows he runs a 2, the next guy knows he runs a 5, the next guy runs a 7, and it's just off and going. But then that allows them to put combinations together as well. So the route tree is just a basis for route running is what it is.
All right. And let's talk about the injuries. I know you try not to have too much contact, but how else do you become a physical team if you don't practice it? 2 5-star running backs, what Reuben Owens at Texas A&M, and Texas has got one out. We don't need that.
No, that's big. I mean, that is big. Now, obviously, you take a program like Texas A&M in Texas, they have other guys, but you can't go too deep into that room. And when you start losing those kind of guys, those are big losses for those programs. Now, again, I think both of those programs will be fine. Both of those teams will be fine, but that is a big deal. You can't have guys hitting the physically the pup list in college football. Let me say that.
Yeah, and you think about offensive linemen now too. Let's talk about the offensive lineman room at Mississippi State, and just in general. Can you go 2 and 3 deep anymore? Or those guys, hey, I'm out. I'm in the portal. I'm not waiting to be developed. I'm a starter. I'm ready to go at 18.
I think you can if you do it the right way. Now, State is not that deep this year. They're going to be depending on several guys from the transfer portal. State probably goes 7, 8 deep. It's not a deep front. It should be a talented front. I think you can go with depth. I think what you have to do is, and look, this is out in the open now, so this is basically what you have to do. You have to continue to recruit well in high school and develop, and then your collectives have to take care of those guys as they move along. You have to keep them on your team. You do that. Hey, you're not doing that with the ice cream cones inside the player facility. You're doing that with your collective and your name, image, and likeness, and then you go out and you grab what you need in the transfer portal and you piece that. So yes, I think you can have that depth. I just think your depth sadly goes as deep as your recruiting and your collective goes today.
Yeah, it really does. Another thing, quarterbacks. How are you going to develop? You need 3 quarterbacks to get through an SEC schedule, because some team or two is going to play 16 or 17 games this year to win a national championship. Think about how many hits these guys are going to take. Are we going to see many 1,200, 1,500-yard rushers anymore? Or in today's world, is it all RBC, running back by committee?
We're about to, and that's the interesting point you bring up, Rob, is we're about to embark on something we've never seen. And what that is in college football, the team that wins the national title is going to play 16, 17 ball games. We've never seen a season of that length in college. Now, granted, these guys are conditioned. They can do it, but it's going to come down to who has the most depth. Let's just say you take Oregon or Ohio State or Alabama or whoever, and, you lose a guy on the offensive front in game 14 or 15, where maybe your season was over. Now what does that look like? How healthy can you stay, through the course of the season? So, depending on the team, I think you could see a 1,500-yard back, or you could see a 1,300-yard back. I mean, you take teams like Ohio State. I mean, they got 2 up there. With Henderson and Judkins. So you would have to think that they're going to get, split carries, but both of those guys could be 1,000-yard backs. Georgia could potentially have, a back of that nature. So I don't think those, and you look at Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State. I mean, he's a guy that he will get the lion's share carries of that football team. So I think those backs are there, but I just don't think they're as common as they used to be, because teams have the committee approach.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a graphic. It was the other day of the 3 running backs. You ready for this? Check out these guys. In 2013, Trey Mason at Auburn, 317 carries. 2007, Darren McFadden at Arkansas, 325. 1981, Herschel, 385 carries. Okay, Trey Mason ran for 1,816 yards that year. Darren McFadden, 1,830, and Herschel, 1,891. And the average per carry for Trey Mason was 5.7, McFadden 5.6, and Herschel 4.9. I mean, those are career stats for a lot of guys now.
It is, and that's interesting, that yards per carry stat, to see Herschel behind some of those guys. But McFadden was, anybody that's 40 and under remembers McFadden and how great he was at Arkansas. But you just don't see that kind of workload. But I think that's the mentality too, because that was the mentality. You had to have those backs. If you go back to even in the 90s, you look at Alabama, you had Sean Alexander. He was a guy that carried a lot of carries. J.J. Johnson at Mississippi State, Deuce McAllister at Mississippi State. LSU, I know you guys remember this, back when I believe it was DiNardo was there, they had the committee approach and just couldn't pull it together. They had 3 guys Kevin Falk, and then there was two other guys that they had. I can't remember their names right off. I'd have to pull it up on the history deck over here. But they had a running back by committee approach. But you saw a lot of Southeastern Conference teams that had that one horse, one trick pony.
Yeah, look, and I tell you that Sean Alexander night against LSU, 297 yards. I mean, he was out of I remember Florence, Kentucky, Boone County High School. I'll never forget that. And what a great night. Hey, look, tell people how they can follow you, Jake. Let's do whenever you've got the graphics. Always, just send them to Brendan the night before.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate and have a ton of respect. Love having you on
if
here.
If you could do my job for me, that'd be great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, civil engineer, my man, from Mississippi State University, man. But tell them how they can follow you.
Yeah, just on X at Jake Wim. We'll be on today 3 to 6 here in the state of Mississippi. You can stream that on the zone1059.com. We're splitting college football plus high school football road tour right now as we're gearing up for high school football. We're also gearing up for other stories here inside the state of Mississippi and around the Southeastern Conference.
Love it, man. See you next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, you bet. All right, let's get Wil Gunter on here from 107.5, The Game over in the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina. And I'm going to ask Will, since he's on here. I had a phone call last night from a viewer of the show, good friend of mine, Jeff Boone, lifelong Georgia fan, grew up in Atlanta and Athens. First off, what's going on with the kickoffs in the NFL? Is that what we tried to do in college? Can you explain that to Jeff Boone and the rest of the free world?
I mean, look, I think it brings the kickoff back into play. I think that's obviously that's what they want, and they want to do it in a safer way. And so you don't have about the 60-yard sprints. I guess probably about 40-yard sprints down the field. Now it's only about 20 yards. I think it's going to be interesting to see special teams coaches now become a little bit more important, maybe dialing up a trick play or whatever. So, hey, I've watched it a couple times. It looks funny. It looks XFL-ish, if you will. But, who knows? Who knows if it's something that takes hold? Who knows if it's something they think, man, this isn't worth it. Guys are getting injured. Let's just go back to kicking out of the back of the end zone and not having kickoffs.
Gotcha. All right, what's going on over in Columbia, Williams-Brice Stadium, 80,000 plus, jam-packed filled every Saturday. What is this, year 5?
4.
4 for Shane Beamer. Okay. All right, let's talk about first the quarterback room, and also about the wide receivers and the running backs, because you can't have enough of those guys with the SEC bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. It's just going to get tougher.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the quarterback room right now is going to be true freshman Lenora Sellers, who is expected to start. Had a scrimmage over the weekend and did some good things. Played kind of like I said, true freshman, a redshirt freshman. Played in 4 games last year. But, he's a guy that has a lot of potential, a lot of upside, is a bigger, stronger guy, 6'3", 6'4", closer to the 245 range, can put his shoulder down. I think it's going to be interesting when it comes to quarterbacks, something that I think we've all known, but you had maybe talent-wise, the greatest quarterback to ever play for South Carolina in Spencer Rattler when you talk about talent. And then, of course, the greatest quarterback would be Connor Shaw. But I say that because Spencer Rattler was not a dual-threat quarterback, so that allowed him to be sacked 41 times last year, or for them to give up 41 sacks. Well, now you've got a guy who is a dual threat, who last year against Vanderbilt had about a 45-yard touchdown run. I know it was Vanderbilt, but, this is a guy who can extend plays with his legs, who is going to require the defense to look at him and consider him a threat, not just in the throwing game, but in the running game as well. So I think that's what's interesting. And then obviously the backup right now is former Oregon and former Auburn player Robbie Ashford, who I don't know if they have a role for him. I don't really know, because they're similar quarterbacks. Lenoris is a better passer. He's a much better passer than Ashford is. But it's not like when you put Ashford out there, you're changing the dynamic of an offense, going from a pocket passer to a dual threat guy and back and forth. So we'll have to see about that. Obviously, a running back, they did a good job of enhancing the running back room, at least with bodies in the offseason. The key name, Rocket Sanders from Arkansas, who comes over, did not scrimmage this past Saturday, wanted to hold him out for precautionary reasons. He's got those shoulder injuries he's been dealing with, dating back to last season. He had off-season surgery. He's kind of a guy that they say is healthy, but you play college football, you play in the SEC, shoulder injuries are a lingering thing. And it doesn't take but one hit. But behind him, they have a transfer in Oscar Attaway out of North Texas. They brought in another really interesting transfer, Jorwan Howe from South Carolina State, who's kind of a 6'1", 210 type back. He has gotten some strong reviews. He was only a freshman last year, so he's one of those different transfers that is kind of like a high school recruit, if you will. He spent a year playing college ball. I know it was at South Carolina State, but he spent a year playing college football, and he's got 3 to go. And so you're not asking him to perform right away. You can maybe even redshirt him. He didn't redshirt at South Carolina. He might have redshirted. I forget. I know he's got 3 years, but it's just an interesting guy they have. And then they brought in a freshman in Matthew Fuller, who's a big physical back and has done some good things in preseason camp. And then you got another guy who's a freshman last year, DJ Braswell. So I say that because there's more bodies at that running back position to try and deal with the wear and tear of one guy. I do think it's interesting. We had this discussion last week about Rocket Sanders. If he is indeed healthy, you look at the second and the third game against Kentucky and LSU, and you go back to what I just talked about with having a redshirt freshman quarterback. I know that in the college game, you don't want to overuse a player right now, but that seems like a guy in Sanders who has to get 20 to 25 carries a game and be kind of the focal point of the offense, which will be interesting to see.
Well, he's like 6'2", 245 pounds out of Rockledge, Florida. Surprised he left Arkansas, but I think he did a lot of his rehab last year during the season out in Dallas. That blew my mind. All right. Connor Shaw, Flowery Branch, Georgia. Remember him well. He's the winningest quarterback in South Carolina history. You go back to the trio, 2011, 12, and 13. 11 wins, 3 straight years at South Carolina. There was a lot of South Carolina talent, homegrown, in-state on that team. Right now, Clemson's not what they were 3 or 4 years ago. There's an opportunity, you would think, for South Carolina to gain some ground. Are they doing that in recruiting?
In state, yeah. Clemson doesn't recruit to state. Clemson will kind of cherry
really don't.
A guy or two, and South Carolina's beating them on a couple guys because of that. Clemson got the top defensive lineman in the state this year, Amir Adams. But South Carolina's really kind of, and I'll use this loosely, South Carolina's had the upper hand. Let's go the upper hand.
Yeah.
In recruiting. Last year, South Carolina landed all 3 of the elite offensive linemen in Josiah Thompson, Cam Pringle, and Blake Franks. They landed the top wide receiver in Mazio Bennett. Clemson has taken more of a national approach to recruiting, going and finding guys. So it has opened the door in state for South Carolina to land some very good prospects that maybe if Clemson had targeted or had higher up on their board, they would have landed. But that's not what has happened. And again, because of that, it has opened the door for the Gamecocks to get in there and kind of be the more, I don't know if dominant is the right word, but kind of land more of the better in-state prospects right now.
Well, they're less likely to quit on you. And there's an interesting stat, like in Georgia for the top kids, 48% of the time, if they don't go to Georgia, they're going to Clemson or Auburn. And it's I bet you South Carolina, you start getting that home state, we're the state university, which you are the university of, you could pick up some ground there. What's your gut feeling about the chemistry, South Carolina as a team? Can they win 6 games or more? And what kind of position is Shane Beamer in? I mean, he looked at media days just down. I called him almost defeated man. It's like, I don't know if he's frustrated. He's got great genes. Frank Beamer as a father. I mean, he's been around winning football all of his life. And I thought they would do better with Spencer Rattler. But, this could be the year when a new guy comes in and expectations are low and they have better than ever. And I think about LSU coming in game 3. Somebody always gets whacked at Williams-Brice when they least expect it.
Yeah, and that's a noon game, which even for LSU is going to be a bit of a challenge here. It's I think it's like mid-80s. It's mid-80s here right now, but the last 2 weeks has been in the hundreds. And I'll be honest, September 14th at noon. It's going to be hot, and I know Louisiana and Baton Rouge. It's not the winter there, but it's a different kind of heat. We were laughing last a week and a half ago. We had the big soccer match over at Williams-Brice Stadium. It was pretty cool. Manchester United and Liverpool, and so you had a bunch of both English soccer players and reporters that were here dealing with the heat. And I think they were all ready to get out of town as soon as that game ended.
I bet.
But to go back, I don't think Shane was down. I think that's not correct. What I do think, now I've preached this openly. One thing that South Carolina has did really well through the first 2 years is promote the program, whether really through social media. You can't do that when you're 5-7. You can't. It looks stupid, to be honest. And so I said, in January, when you don't make a bowl game, my thing coming out was like, I don't want to see it. Don't post the video that looks like the office of running, doing the thing. Don't post the Full House video. Don't show me the video of them working out, trying to hype me up. Go do it on the field. And I'll give Shane credit. I think they've done a tremendous job. I thought he did a tremendous job at media days of not hyping his. He got kind of, I think, defensive a little bit on it, but I really thought, I really think overall he's done a good job of saying, all right, we're going to let what happens on the field define who we are, not what happens on Twitter or X or Instagram, whatever you want to use. But I think that's what they got to do. I think this is humble, may not be the right word, but obviously that first year to go 7-6 and to do what they did to beat North Carolina. Obviously, the second year to go 8-5 and have a chance to win 9 games in that bowl game. Those are accomplishments. That's what you brag about. 5-7, you don't. You can't do anything. So I don't think he's defeated. I do think they understand the pressure. It would take a lot. It would take a lot for him to be fired after this season. I don't think anybody putting him on the hot seat, I think, is not really paying attention to what's going on. But with that being said, if you don't go to a bowl, and really if you don't win 7 games, it makes it difficult in this day and age. Kids in the transfer portal, they want to go play for a winner right now. They're limited on their time. High school recruits want to go play for a winner. It's hard to sell 5-7 when Georgia's winning championships, when Tennessee looks like they're on the rise, when Clemson's still a very good team. That's, you talk about who you're going against there. That's really hard to sell. And so that's why it is important. And can they do it? Yeah, I think there's 2 huge swing games for them. I think number 1 is the second game of the season on the road at Kentucky. You've beaten them the first 3 years here, or you've beaten them the last 2 years. I keep forgetting Mark Stoops and them had to vacate the 2021 victory. So technically, Beamer and them 3-0 against Kentucky now with a vacated victory added to that. But and then look, I'll be honest. I don't know what we talked about this morning, talking about the top 25. I don't know what to make of Texas A&M and Mike Elko. You've got a lot of kids. You got a lot of kids there that are in the Jimbo Fisher culture of, hey, did my paycheck clear? Okay, it did. Okay, I'll play this week. And A&M's got a schedule. And they could come to Columbia on November 2nd, and South Carolina at that point would be, in my opinion, probably fighting to have a good November to get bowl eligible. And South Carolina will be coming off a bye week. That's a huge. Those are the 2 games I think you have to split them. No questions asked. You have to split those 2 games. And realistically, you might have to go 2-0, given your October slate is going to be a top 5 Mississippi team, going to be Alabama, and going to be a trip to Oklahoma.
Yeah. And that Shane Beamer knows how long it took his dad to get Virginia Tech going, like 7 years. And then they hit that with the Sugar Bowl in '94 against Texas. They took 50,000 people to New Orleans, and that was just incredible. But I like him a lot. I love his enthusiasm and his energy. He's a positive guy. And I think he probably, since he knew Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma, thought he'd have more success with him when he was there. Couple of minutes before we let you go, I know you've been on your show this morning. What is the big buzz over there on 107.5, the game in Columbia, about South Carolina? What do the fans want? What's the standard for this year? What's the bar been set at?
Well, it's a bowl. 6 wins. But I think there's a competitiveness level to it. They should win their 3 non-conference games. They should beat Old Dominion, Akron, and Wofford, and then really they should beat Vanderbilt. As I mentioned, can you get that Kentucky game? Can you sneak up on LSU? Can you beat Texas A&M? Missouri is here in Columbia, South Carolina this year. Can you get that game? They're and Clemson. Look, South Carolina showed they could beat Clemson up at Memorial Stadium 2 years ago, and I don't think Clemson is the world beater juggernaut that we've seen in the past. South Carolina didn't give up an offensive touchdown to them last year. They had the stupid backwards pass on the second play of the game that Clemson picked up and scored defensively. So there's an element of you got to get to a bowl game, but also you can't be blown out. You can't go 6-6 where you win 6, but you get shredded by LSU. You get demolished by Mississippi, which is a home game. You can't go to Alabama and lose by 4 touchdowns. You get my point? Like,
you're right.
You and that is where I say I said that Shane Beamer's not on the hot seat and gets fired. Well, part of that is you can't go 4. Let's just say they go 4-8. He would be retained. But if you go 4-8, but in 6 of those games you lose by 3 touchdowns, that's a different 4-8, right? Yeah, like you're not competitive. And so I say all that. So it's not just getting to a bowl game, but it's being competitive with LSU, being competitive with Alabama, being competitive with the road game at Oklahoma in situations like that.
But showing improvement, I think there's a lot of parallels with Florida there, where, with Billy Napier, what we're looking at this season, all the talk at SEC Media Days was schedule. Toughest schedule potentially. I don't know. I always have a hard time with that because, how do we know it's the toughest schedule in the history of college football until they play the games and we see who's who? But defensively, I feel like South Carolina's improved. I watched them, take on the Gators at home last year and I thought that debacle. But talk to me about, have they gotten better on defense? Because defense wins in the SEC. I don't admittedly know a whole lot about South Carolina, so I was just curious.
I will tell you that the general consensus is this defense should be top 6, top 5 in the league. There is high expectation. There's a lot of experience. They have upgraded the talent. It starts up front with the defense of the interior guys, Boogie Huntley and Tonka Hemingway. I believe I just saw yesterday Hemingway was named to the Beardnick Award watch list. They've got some depth there too, and that was a big discussion at SEC Media Day, was the depth of the interior guys, the 2 interior guys. They've got, we're kind of joking, it's kind of like a hockey change there, where you've got your first line 2, your second 2, your third 2. You can line change those things out. Obviously, at the ends, they brought in Dylan Stewart. Dylan Thompson's a great quarterback. He's not a good defensive end.
Not big enough.
Dylan, they bring in Dylan Stewart. They get back a guy that we really liked, Gilbert Edmond, who was here and I thought was blossoming and really coming along. And he transferred to Florida State and it didn't work last year, so he transfers back to South Carolina.
Yeah.
And you got him. They've got some other bodies there that are very interesting that I think can develop. And then you go to the linebackers. They made an effort to get faster. They lost their 2 starters, and I think people are going to look at it and be like, wow, you lose Pup Howard to Florida. You lose Stone Blanton to Mississippi State. I don't want to, especially Pup Howard, I don't want to put him down at all. I do question his athleticism for linebacker in the SEC, and that was a big thing last year. There's a lot of people that think maybe he should have been moved to defensive end and allowed to gain some weight. But I say that because they upgraded. They bring in Benagli Kamara, Bang Kamara, as they're calling him, a guy who can hit from Pittsburgh. They bring in Demetrius Knight, who I just learned the other day is the old man of the group, just had a second child. He's married. They basically brought in a 32-year-old guy to do this thing. And so with all this, we're saying all this, they've upgraded that. And then the secondary really, really actually should be good. There's really no excuse. They've got a lot of pieces there, a lot of very good parts. The secondary should be improved. So I think the defense should be, keyword, should be vastly improved.
Yeah. Hey, Will, look, we're going to get you back on again here next week or 2 if you can be with us, because love hearing this information, because we're getting close, and you gave us a perspective that only you can do, because you work your tail off. Tell people how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work, and really appreciate you taking time to join us.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because there's a lot of people that don't think I work my tail off. I just came off a 5-day vacation where I was in Atlanta watching the Braves bullpen completely implode. But yeah, you can always check us out on Twitter. You check me out at Wil Gunter, Gunter, and of course we're all over the state here in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach. You can go to our website 1075thegame.com and listen. You can download our app. Today we talked about the AP Top 25. Obviously, we got into South Carolina football and talked a little bit of NFL as well. So we try to cover a lot of different stuff. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's here. It's just over a week away to Florida State and Georgia Tech, and
God, it's here.
18 days away. 18
Hey, we
days
might have
away
to put South Carolina on the tour stop, Rob. We're going on tour this year. We'll tell you more about it later.
Yeah,
well,
and we need to get his. Hey, Brenda, we need to get his show on the SEC Sideline Sports Network, 107.5 The Game. They are y'all roll. We'll talk to you about that. We'll see you next week. And anyway, thank you so much. Don't melt.
Thank you.
Yeah. Y'all take care.
All right, you too. All right, Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline.
Hi, Yancy.
Monday night, 6 p.m. Sports 56 WHBQ Memphis and Super Talk Mississippi. It's 2 syllables. Mississippi. Had lunch last Tuesday at the Tallahatchie Gourmet Grill down below Nielsen's clothing store that's been there since 1839 on the historic square in Oxford. They were out of gumbo, but I had some salmon with cheese grits and a great salad. Oxford, folks, do yourself a favor. You want to relax and have a great time, go to Oxford, Mississippi. A little bit of excitement in the air about the Rebels. I think you're number 6 in the preseason poll. Yancy, tell us what's happening there inside and outside of Vaught Hemingway Stadium.
Well, things right now seem to be, they're doing the NFL model. They're not hitting.
Not hitting.
Well, he got hit. I think he just
Yeah.
he was in Oklahoma drill, and then he got cut off with it.
There's no injuries. I guess boring would be a better way, but that's good.
Oh, that is good.
There have been some concussions. I guess they're in the thudding, some concussions, but mostly everybody's healthy. But Princely, the defensive end from Florida, and that's probably going into camp. That was the biggest concern depth-wise. Defensive end, that's still the biggest concern depth-wise. And then running back maybe a little bit, outside of Bentley and Pears. Logan Diggs is still out. He'll be out. They're hoping to get him back late October, probably more like mid-November. Those 2 positions, defensive end, running back, would be the thinnest positions. Everywhere else looks pretty good.
One more question before I bring Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, on here with you. I love getting y'all 2 on together because you both know your schools like very few people on earth besides those coaches, but you know the SEC. Another one for you, anything sticking out different about the demeanor of the players for Ole Miss this year, Yancy, because this is it's been a while since they've been this high in the preseason. I'd say 2008, 2009, and they didn't have the year they were hoping they would have, but just your thoughts when you come back. Hopefully, Yancy, yeah, just if you could talk about the demeanor of the Ole Miss players with all the expectations this year and the number 6 preseason ranking that's out there in the coaches poll.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Were you able to hear me a little bit?
No, we lost you for a sec. But, yeah, but real quick before we get Rodney on here, what's the demeanor of the team at Ole Miss like now, just with the expectations and all?
The demeanor is really good right now. I mean, everybody's focused, ready to go. We're in week 3 of the camp. I think that there's still a lot of battles going on, especially along the offensive line for starting jobs. A few on the defense there, but pretty much everybody knows what their place is right now, position wise. But as far as expectations, fans patting them on the back. I don't think that's going to get it to their head at all.
Yeah, and the heat's going to, make everybody remember that they still got to work their tail off to all these expectations, or they don't matter. But Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, on here with us, and Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Rodney, let's talk about Tuscaloosa. It's getting here. It's getting closer by the minute. But what's going on in preseason practice, and what have you learned up to this point? Rodney, are you there? Okay. Rodney, when you get in, let us know when you're back. But Yancy, while hopefully Rodney will be right back with us. But the expectations, you got to love it. I mean, I think as a player, you love being ranked in the top 5 or 6 in the country, and it makes getting up in the morning and working out easier. That's just what I think. Rodney, if you can hear us, let's talk about what you've learned up to this point with Alabama in the preseason, the practices and all. The players hate them; they're boring. But anything that you've gleaned that you could tell us about?
I think Rodney, if you your microphone is not enabled there, bud. So if
okay, all right.
icon there, see if you
Yancy, before we go back, let's talk about one thing: the quarterback room. You've got Walker Howard behind Jackson Dart.
Yeah,
I think you need 3 quarterbacks because Ole Miss could play 17 games this year. I mean, a national champion might have 17 games on their schedule. I don't think you can have enough depth, can you?
no, certainly can't. I mean, you hope not to get the quarterback number 3.
Yeah.
If you do, you might be in trouble there. But certainly, that's Ole Miss's deepest position with quality players, I would say. And some people say Walker Howard's edged up to number 2 just because of his experience in the system going in year 3 here. But Simmons, he's so talented, and is the most gifted quarterback on the team.
Wow. All right, running back wise, we've been talking about Logan Diggs and Henry Parrish, but Ulysses Bentley the 4th, 5th, and 6th. I think he's a hell of a back. I mean, came over from SMU. Is this his 5th or 6th year in college? That he's a back who can tote the ball. Who is the alpha male in that room? Or you got a bunch of them? Because I know everybody talks about the wide receiver position in today's world, but being able to run the ball, it's like when Spurrier got to Florida. When he first got there, they were throwing it so much. And in the 4th quarter, they kept throwing it, and it allowed some teams to pick off a couple of passes and beat them. And then they started bringing in Ernest Graham, Eric Rhett, people like that, and they would eat the clock and run the ball actually statistically almost as much or more than they threw it.
Yeah, man. Obviously, Bentley is the alpha dog of the running back room. Parrish just looked really good. He's just, this is not his first time with Lane. Kevin Smith, he knows the system. Those two are 1A, 1B right there together. But then there's the drop off. With Amos, their transfer they came in. He's a big old plugger. He's 235 pounds. Somebody put it in the goal line, but I don't know if they're going to truly go with the 3-headed monster that they were hoping to go with this season until Diggs returns. When Diggs gets back, he's still recovering from his knee injury that he had in the bowl game for LSU. They're expecting him to be back hopefully late October, more like mid-November. When he comes back, they'll have that 3-headed monster they wanted. But I think maybe there's a little disappointment there that they don't have those 3 running backs that they were hoping to have this year. Not that Amos won't be valuable, but I don't know if he quite has the speed to be a true SEC back.
Well, you think about it. One thing for sure about Ole Miss is the number of defensive linemen that they have. I've always said that the top teams in the SEC are 2 and 3 deep across the front 7. Is this as deep as you can remember Ole Miss being on the front 7 on defense?
Defensive end with Princely out, I've seen them a little bit deeper there at that rush end.
Okay.
But defensive tackle, they got 10, 12 guys they can win with. They're going to play 8 to 10. But Princely being back in there would really help things. That shoulder just will not get right, where he had all-season surgery down there at Florida. He had it back in January. There's a little concern about that shoulder.
Well, one thing about, and Wil Gunter said it in the segment prior to you coming on, it's a nagging injury. It's chronic. I mean, it's not going to get any better during the season because you're going to be hitting constantly. And that's, I think about it. One of our sponsors, XO Armor, that makes all the non-invasive pads and braces and casts and all. There's so much stuff being done now. Boy, if you could come up with something that would make the shoulder durable enough to go a season, or you better have a bunch of backs in the running back room. Right? You're looking at college football now, Yancy. I think people are concerned. I don't see an effort to make the game softer. I see an effort to make the game safer. But here's a question from one of our viewers. Are teams, let's say you don't get a first-round bye. You could play 17 games. Yeah. The most we've ever seen is 15, and that took a lot. Now you're going to 17, and the thought of not having 3 guys at every position, that's scarier than it used to be.
Yeah, it's going to be a war of attrition. Literally, it's going to be the NFL model. Even the NFL went from 16 to 17 regular season game. Good gosh, once they get through with the playoffs, if you're a wild card team, you can play 21 games. So, it's not to that length, but yeah, you need to be 3 deep at every position. I feel like that they feel like that they're 3 deep everywhere, a true 3 deep, but outside defensive end at the rush in spot and running back. I think, Amos is going to be suitable. I think he's going to be a good thumper down there, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to get, 12, 14 carries a game. I see more lining that 3 to 5 carries. So when they get Diggs back, they feel like there'll be 3 deep quality there, but that defensive end rush in there is still a concern of theirs.
Yeah, and if Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider, can join us, I'd love to have him on because I'd love to get the 2 of y'all together because you're both so good. You know this league inside out. And Rodney's on his way to practice. His mic is blocked, so there's really whoops. So, okay, he'll try to get on. He's on the way to practice in Tuscaloosa. What is the number? A couple of questions. What's the number of practices? We used to have 2 a days and 3 a days. How do they get around the coaches? They're doing it because you've got to get your team prepared. How do they get around it?
Well, they're doing 2 at Ole Miss right now. They're doing mornings and early evenings. But they're not, they're just thumping. They're not going down to the ground. There's no tackling. But there's thumping. There's been a lot of concussions, so they're still hitting. But it's I'm sure they're holding some indoors. The media has very limited access. You got to remember Lane when he went and worked for Saban. He's usually all of his model that is followed just after Saban. Saban was not very big on giving access to the media, so Lane's doing the same thing. So it's tough, but we get to see limited views. Usually, about 7-8 periods. And then for the first 30 minutes, but a lot of that stretching. So it's really hard to tell anything outside of what maybe what string everybody's running. But it's they're using that NFL model where they're trying to prevent injuries. And really, the only thing we're seeing right now outside of Princely that had the shoulder injury there at Florida. Logan Diggs had the knee injury there at LSU. Everybody's been pretty healthy outside of concussions.
All right, got to ask you this too. Wide receiver room. How good is Trey Harris? He got hurt some last year, but this guy shows signs of being another first or second round wide receiver. And Ole Miss has had some really good wide receivers in the last decade.
He's really good. He should be one of the top, 5-10 wide receivers in the country. Is he a guy that's going to separate from the pack speed wise? No, but he's just a big physical receiver that uses his body well. That is hard to bring down, and he's shifty. For a guy that's 220 pounds, he's a guy that can really make you miss. So he's just really good, really good.
All right, couple of games on the schedule for Ole Miss, and they're kind of at extreme ends. Early on, you've got the 3rd game of the season. You got to go to Winston-Salem and play Wake Forest.
Yeah,
that's one you just want to watch out for. Clawson always has a team. They're well coached, fundamentally sound. And then you go to November 23rd to the Swamp with Florida. That's the danger. The ACC not regarded like the SEC is, but you don't want to go and drop a game like that. Do you get the sense that Lane Kiffin's going, guys, throw all those magazines and all that stuff out the window? It's a 12-chapter book, and you better read one chapter at a time. Don't get caught looking ahead. Finish the sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Lane's telling them, but I know that I've been talking about it all season. Those are two that I've got circled. Wake Forest is traditionally given, top opponents a very difficult time there. Wake Forest has got a quiet confidence in their team. Last year they lost their quarterback to Notre Dame. They feel good about that position now. They got a lot of veterans in that system, a hell of a football coach. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be much more competitive than a lot of people feel. And then Florida, we've talked about it extensively. The buzz is going to be mid-season unless Florida gets off to a really good start. The buzz is going to be all about Lane Kiffin down there at Gainesville trying to snag him. And that's really going to tick off that current Florida staff. And they're going to coach like it's their Super Bowl. And I expect that to be maybe their most difficult game of the season down there in the Swamp.
Yeah, and I like this question from George, one of our viewers. Are we going to go to 200 players on each team? I know he's kidding, but so there's somebody left at the end of the season. I mean, crazy.
105 scholarships. I mean, I think the NCAA just wants total pandemonium and chaos. I say that, but the court system's really forcing the issue for them to. I just think they're just like, we're tired of being sued. We're tired of this. Just whatever,
Yeah.
But 105 guys on scholarship, we're going back to, I guess, to the 1950s and 60s. I guess the more the merrier. The game will get better. That's for sure.
I agree. Hey, let me say something real quick about our sponsors. They're all on our website, sidelines.live, and we're going to be doing something really cool with the website here in the next month, working on that. But folks like Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, I was out there last week. All these fall fashions, man. Yancy, you got to check this store out. They're coming in. STS, Schaefer Outdoors, Pendleton. They're the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast. The Acres down south. I'm wearing one of the Tennessee shirts right now. They've got them with Smokey. They got the orange and white coveralls. They got the Gator Chomp shirt. They have got over 7,000 pairs of boots. There's the Grove, Yancy, for Ole Miss right there. That's a good-looking shirt. They can't keep them in stock. But I've said, hey, make them because my audience wants to buy them. Anderson Bean boots. I got me a pair of boots made out of Greater Kudu the other day. God, they got men's and women's clothing. They've got everything imaginable. Hats, belts. They got everything at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And Web-Footed Kennels, our good friends, Chris Aiken and the team up in Jonesboro, Arkansas. If you are looking for a great hunting dog, they do very select breedings with registered AKC dogs with strong bloodlines. They have absolutely gorgeous 240-acre facility. I was up there last Wednesday. Actually, it was incredible, or actually Thursday, watching Chris, and he's got 9 people helping him train all these dogs, technical, water, and everything. They're even working with my friend Dell's German wire hair. But Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I've known Chris Aiken since 1995. I'm looking forward to when we get to 2025, Yancey, so I can say I've known him 30 years. But I got to be accurate, But anyway, all of our sponsors, great folks, again, like Exo Armor. Please do us a favor. The Vitamin Shop, Rumble Boxing, Tom Martin's Body Shop, Matei's Garage, all of them. Check them out. Proud to have them as a supporter. Going back to this Ole Miss game in the Swamp, everybody remembers 2008. What a big game that was. This year, it's still Florida. So it'll be crazy. Let's see if Rodney – I know Rodney was going to try to get to practice there in Tuscaloosa. Rodney, join us here if you can. We had some technical difficulties. It was like back in the day when Mildred would call the Feinbaum show and they'd have to take a break because Vickers was choking. He was laughing so hard.
Yeah. Well, I apologize. I had to jump off this Bluetooth. I figured it out thanks to Brendan. So,
He's the best producer in the world. I'll just tell you that.
Yeah. So, I was kind of driving and trying to do this at the same time. It's not advisable. But anyway,
Thank you for coming with us. Yeah.
It's been a great. It's really been a great fall camp so far. I mean, it really has. The vibe is really good. The intensity is extremely high. People say compare these practices to Nick Saban's. I mean, it's really not a lot of difference. I mean, I think actually the intensity in these practices is probably a little higher than it has been in a few years here. So,
wow.
No, I think everything has been really good. I think the players are focused. I think they relate extremely well to this coaching staff. So, a lot of good things, but then there's a lot of question marks too.
Rodney, you talked about the practices are different. Kalen DeBoer, he's his own man.
Yeah.
What is it like talent-wise? What's amazing to me, and you talked about this, I love that you laid it out. When Nick Saban retired, you had 2 of the freshmen in that class, I think, went somewhere else, and then you had 29 players leave for whatever reason. They were eligibility was up. They transferred out, whatever. Yet Alabama's still second in the country at 88% 4 and 5 stars on the Blue Chip Index, behind only, and I'll say it with an emphasis, Ohio State University. I don't call them the Ohio State University. It's Ohio State. But they're loaded with talent. I want to ask you about a guy because there's a sentimental part because he's related to the Taco Casa people. Wil Gunter on the offensive line. How's he doing now?
He's made a lot of progress. He's, first of all, I will say this about Wil Gunter, he's probably as hard a worker and as determined of a kid as they have on this team. He really is.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to be a football player. He wants to be a great offensive tackle. He's determined. And I think that with the tools that he has, I think that's a great combination. Look, to be honest with you, Wilkin came in here really raw. And he's a redshirt freshman, but the progress that he's made is pretty significant right now. I think he's got a leg up. That's just me. They certainly haven't indicated that, but Rob, I think he's got a leg up to win the right tackle spot right now.
Is he going to be the Taco Casa Burrito Burger player of the game? I wonder if he's got an NIL deal with him, but man, I just, I love the Casa. But I got to ask you another one. Ryan Williams out of Saraland reclassified and came in. Everybody knows his dad played at Auburn and all, but good for Ryan. I wish him nothing but the best. And he is a special player. Is he getting a lot of reps with the number ones out there, or they're like going, hey, man, we know this guy can play. Let's find out about these others. Rodney. Oh, no.
I'm here. You there, Rob?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is, yes, Ryan Williams is getting a lot of reps, and he certainly has gotten some with the ones as well. And look, he looks like the real deal to me, to be honest with you. I mean, I would kind of compare him, if you want a comparison. He's a little bit like Devontae Smith. I mean,
God. That's scary.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's extremely fluid. He adjusts to the ball. He looks like just a well-groomed center fielder, when the ball's in the air. I mean, he can just adjust his body. He can, torque his body in certain ways that probably most people can't.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of a little bit like Gumby out there, in that regard. But no, he looks really good. He's been the real deal. And Caleb Odom, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but he made a one-handed catch in that last scrimmage that was pretty phenomenal. 6'5". He's done really well at wide receiver. I think the wide receiver core is going to surprise some people, and part of the reason I think they've got great coaching. Got Jamarcus Shepard.
Yeah, and great talent. Yancy Porter jumping here with Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider. And by the way, folks, Tuesday nights, 6:30 p.m. Rodney, tell them real quick before we go to Yancy what you and Gary Harris do a great show. And Bama fan or not, you need to watch this because this is two guys dedicated to their craft, local guys, WVUA Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa, that put on a first-class show.
Yeah, it's tonight, actually, live, 6:30. We're going to talk spring, not spring, but fall camp here. Yeah.
The heat.
I was looking for a parking place, Rob. I mean, it's packed here as we go into practice, but we'll cover in depth the scrimmage from last Saturday, preview the upcoming scrimmage, and all of those things that go around it.
Yeah. Yancy, jump in here.
Yeah, just hearing him talk about Caleb Odom, William Wilkman, two guys that Ole Miss wanted desperately in the recruiting process that I followed for years. So it's really nice to hear that they're succeeding and doing well there at Alabama. I guess my biggest question is the question marks going into the season there, Rodney, is offensive line and corner. How are those two positions looking?
Yeah. Well, I think they're still they've got a lot of confidence and a lot of positive things to say about this offensive line, the potential of it. I think the interior is probably as good as there is. Parker Brailsford's gotten bigger at center. You got Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts at the guards. It's a really strong group. Got to stay healthy. Gino Vandermark's kind of the swing guy inside, transferred from Michigan State. Outside the tackles, Caden Proctor's in much better shape this year. He's moving well. He did have some problems with the Texas A&M transfer, LT Overton, in the scrimmage, though. LT is he could be a really big addition on that defensive line. Had a really good scrimmage. But Proctor's looked better for the most part. I think at right tackle, we talked about Wilkin for him, but it's got a chance to be a really, really good group at corner. A lot of talent. I think they've got 4 or 5 stars there. They got 3 true freshmen doing really well. Zabian Brown, Jalen Mbakwe, both have done extremely well in camp. And then you've got Zay Mincy, another guy from Florida who broke up some balls in the scrimmage, did a nice job. And then you've got Damani Jackson, the transfer from USC, who's done a fantastic job, and Deshaun Jones, transfer from Wake Forest. So it's a group that it's not right now. I think it's still work in progress, but a lot of potential.
Yeah, and you're thinking about it, the talent level. Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, these schools are competing for these elite players. Of these true freshmen coming in, Rodney, in practice so far, are they getting better prepared because of 7-on-7s, and also so many of them are coming in early in January? Is it really starting to make a difference?
Yeah, I think especially, in coming in the spring, it gives guys a leg up. You can see it. I mean, guys like, that we're here in the spring now. Ryan Williams is a different story. I mean, there's not everybody's Ryan Williams, just like not everybody was Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
I mean, Minkah came in the summer and learned Nick Saban's defense, which you basically got to be a Phi Beta Kappa to do that.
Yes.
So, Ryan has, but most of the guys that came in the spring, they're the ones that are flourishing right now. The corners that I mentioned, some other players, Caleb Odom, that really helps guys get a jump start. So I think those guys are the ones that position themselves to potentially contribute.
Yeah. Rodney, when you look at Alabama, you look at Ole Miss, they're both, I think, 5 and 6 in the polls right now. They don't play this year, but you don't get any breaks because you're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas to the league. So, but Kalen DeBoer, what on defense? Let's talk about the defensive front, the front 7 and the depth in that area.
I think the defensive line, there may not be any Jonathan Allens, but there's a lot of good players. This is a good enough group. It's got depth. Jaheim Otis is a guy that's got a chance to be on that level. Tim Keenan's back, Damon Payne, Tim Smith. Tim Smith has the ability, if they can get it out of him. Jamarian Latham, I mentioned LT Overton, the transfer from Texas A&M, had a huge scrimmage. They got numbers. Keon Keeley is now at defensive end. They've got numbers. They got two great inside backers, Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson. Listen out for the name Justin Jefferson. He's working in that first group inside as well, the JUCO transfer last year.
Yeah.
They're working all three of those guys on the field together at times. So I think outside backer, that's still Quay Rousseau. Quay Rousseau is a guy that could really emerge out there, redshirt freshman. And then you've got two guys, Keanu Coote, Quandarius Robinson, who have been around for a while.
Yeah. It's unusual to hear, Yancy, isn't it? A redshirt freshman in today's world, especially a 5-star like Rousseau out of Montgomery Carver.
Yeah, it is.
I say that again. I'm sorry, Rob. I'm about to step into practice here.
Yeah, I was just saying it's almost unheard of in today's world to hear about a 5-star like Quay Rousseau out of Montgomery Carver taking a redshirt year, Yancy.
Yeah.
It is, but, when the rules change where you can play 4 games in your bowl game and not count towards your eligibility, you can get in. If you're in the playoffs, I guess you could play 6-7 games now and hold your red shirt. So it would be if you were in the old terms where you played, I believe, what was it? If you got into your 3rd game, I can't remember what the old rules were.
Yeah, it was 2 games.
You couldn't play. 2 games you couldn't play. But, you can get in now 4 regular season games and then your bowl games plus playoffs. You can get in quite a sense. But, yes, red shirt days are getting less and less and less.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, I hate to cut out on you, Rob. They're calling.
No, we got to wrap it up anyway. Hey, we got to wrap it up. But anyway, Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider, thanks so much. We'll get this worked out next week. Do it again. Get you and Yancy on here. But look, folks, this is I love this, having somebody at practice like that. And Yancy, I know you're all over the place there in Oxford covering Ole Miss. But anyway, a lot of fun on this show. We covered a lot of ground. So thanks everybody for watching. Just remember, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We're the most blessed people. Every day, put a to-do list together of things you can do to make yourself and other people better. Hard work works, okay? We'll see you in the morning. Thanks for watching.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.